All right, this is the student feedback for prompt B. Um, the students that had this prompt for their midterm exam explain and assess the varying underlying causes of the American Revolution and determine the single cause that most enticed the colonists to break away from Great Britain. Use the documents and your knowledge of the period, 1754 to 1776, in constructing your response. And so I have given each student a special kind of like identifier, a number, so that way I can give the feedback in a more organized way. You know, if it's your number, of course, that I'm talking to you, and other students don't know who you are, so that it maintains some degree of anonymity. So the first error that I want to point out that several students tripped up on was to create relevant and appropriate category labels. Now remember on our sample DBQ worksheet, category labels are kind of like titles for grouping of documents. It's sort of like organizing documents together that have some type of similar theme and then naming in some way the theme of the document. And of course you want to create the label so that it answers the question. And so if our primary question here is to explain and assess the varying underlying causes, our task is to classify the various different causes, not in a specific way, but in a general way. And so the example that we used, the various different causes we cited, increased taxation was a cause. We saw that was evident in documents A and C. The lack of political representation was a cause of the American Revolution. That was evident in documents B and D. There was limited freedom and equality. That was evident in documents E, G, and H. And then there were very few economic advantages, which we classified that as being evident in document F. And so here, student number 3, the category labels that they chose: equality of rights, rebel acts, and unequal rights. Now, equality of rights and unequal rights, I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to say here. These seem to be counterproductive and not different categories at all. So maybe one of the category labels could have been lack of rights, or the colonists feeling as if they were unequal. I mean, that would be fine. And then like acts of rebellion maybe, or rebel acts. But I'm not really sure how equality of rights and unequal rights, those are not two separate categories. So anyway, so you would need to rethink the wording of this. Student number 7 here, they chose the category labels as causes and primary. Now, the primary question is asking us, what are the causes of the American Revolution? Each category label should in some way hint to the cause, or should summarize the cause in some kind of way. And so causes cannot be the name of a cause. I mean, what is the cause? Also, primary, I'm not sure what that means either. So make sure you understand the purpose of category labels and the steps in which you have to follow to get to the part of labeling the category. So anyway, student number 9, the category labels that you use to describe the underlying causes of the American Revolution: economic causes. Okay, that's great. Political causes, social causes. Okay, that's excellent. So those categories are fine, as I noted here, but then I'll talk about a little later the issue was when you stated the claim in each category. That was your hiccup there. But those categories are fine. They were economic, political, and social causes of the American Revolution. That sounds great to me. Student number 18, in classifying the causes of the American Revolution, economy. So I guess you're trying to say economic causes. That's fine here. Violence. what kind of violence? Or are you saying that events of violence that erupted? That, I mean, that's fine. That could be a cause. Maybe you would just have to word it differently. But the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party. Well, the Boston Tea Party wasn't really. Well, they were both physical means. They were like both means of physical aggression. So maybe that would be a more suitable term here. And then government. That is just way too general. To say that government is the cause of a revolution, you have to be a little more descriptive. What kind of government? An oppressive government, an overbearing government. That would probably be a little more suitable. And so for student number 20, causes of the American Revolution. Okay, American Revolution cannot be a cause of the revolution. That's the result. Because bad things happen, the revolution occurs. So that can't be a cause. Also, the colonists and separation of Great Britain. So, again, this is not the cause. What is causing the separation of Great Britain? That's what we're trying to figure out. We know that this is happening, but what's causing it? And so going back to our sample DBQ worksheet, these are kind of examples of category labels. And notice how broad these labels are. They're not specific. They don't reference particular events of history, but they in some way reference various different themes of documents when you put them together, of course, and kind of organize them together. All right, next student number 21, underlying causes of the revolution. Okay, that's not a cause. That's not a label. That's not a broad umbrella category label for the different types of causes. And acts of protest. Now, that's pretty good. Acts of protest definitely can be a cause of the revolution. So, this one here just needs that first one, that just doesn't fit. So anyway, after you get the category labels, then you have to make a claim in each category. Now, let me go to the sample here. The purpose of the claim in each category, in essence, what you're doing is you're answering the question using each umbrella heading. And we know the primary question was what were the basically to analyze or assess the underlying causes of the revolution. And so stating a claim is basically just stating that increased taxation was the cause of the revolution. This phenomena here was a cause of the revolution. Limited freedom and equality caused the revolution. Few economic advantages caused the revolution. So this part is pretty easy once you get the concept down. And so the only student here that had trouble making the claim in each category was student number 9. And so your categories were fine, economic, political, and social. Your task here is to describe in what way did the economy cause the revolution, or in what way did politics cause the revolution, or just to state that it did. So the start of the religion, I'm not sure what this means, which category. I'm not even really sure which category this matches up with. I'm guessing political or maybe social. Chaos and violence broke out. Okay, all right, great. Maybe that'll be political or, again, social. See, it's just so uncertain. The decision for rights and independence. All right, so where's your economic claim? Like, what is going on with the economy that's causing the revolution? That's not evident in any of these. All of the ones that you have stated seem as if they could apply to political and social, but it's just not. It's just really murky. It's hard to follow. The next piece of advice here is don't reference specific events or details in the thesis. A thesis is an overarching statement. It's not a place to give examples. So when the question is asking us to assess the various causes of the revolution, student number 2, the American Revolution was caused by many historical events, like the Boston Tea Party, Intolerable Acts, First and Second Continental Congress, the Battle of Lexington, and Concord. All right, so the question didn't ask about the events. It asked about the causes. And so you are headed in the right direction here. You just have to in some way reclassify or recode this. And so, like for instance, the Boston Tea Party and the Battle of Lexington and Concord. I mean, those can be events of, we can say, physical aggression, because this is the first battle here. And then the Boston Tea Party. It's when the colonists are disguised as Indians, destroying chests of tea. The Intolerable Acts. A way to reclassify this would just be legislation. Oppressive legislation was another cause of the revolution. The First and Second Continental Congress, you could reclassify this. Means of collective resistance, or a cause could be due to political, because this is in essence a political body that are being empowered by meeting and collectively deciding how to respond to the oppression exerted by the British. So maybe this could be sophisticated political bodies that coordinated the rebellions. Political organizations or political planning could have been a cause of the revolution. So anyway, but to reference specific events is not necessary. The colonists decided to break away from Great Britain because they wanted more control over the government and economy. Excellent. All right, great statement there. They wanted equal rights and wanted to be independent. Excellent. All right, so this is all very good. This thesis has a lot of potential. It's just you just offer too many details here. There is no need to reference specific events of history. You talk about that in the body of your essay. And so student number 14, because the British Parliament thought it was necessary to impose taxes. And so this whole thing, you probably should just take out. I wish I knew how to get to that strike through font. But anyway, this whole little part is almost unnecessary. Because the British Parliament thought it was necessary to impose taxes. Maybe you could say against the will of Americans. The American Revolution sparked the beginning of American freedom and independence from Great Britain. Okay, great. So just figure out some other way to reference these events without their specific name. So imposing taxes, that's great. Just no need for examples. But of course, in this thesis, you still need other causes. So because of taxes, that could be a cause. And you don't have enough causes here. So this is all going into detail about once the Americans fight the revolution, they want to be free, they want to be independent. Okay, well, why do they want to be free and independent? So what are some of the kind of events that sparked this desire to be free and independent? Okay, so number 17, again, you're citing specific examples. There were many underlying causes of the American Revolution, such as the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party, showing that the colonists were exhausted of Parliament, but the single cause for breaking away were all the missteps by Great Britain, which caused colonists to break away to prevent Great Britain from stripping them of their property and making them slaves. Okay, so instead of saying many of the underlying causes was things such as the Boston Massacre, in essence, maybe causes could have been British presence in, or British military presence in the colonies. That way, you're not only restraining it to this event. There are so many other events that may not even be documented in history. It may not be in the documents that you're looking at, but by recoding your intent to make it broader, you can encaptivate more events. Kind of not in an explicit way, but kind of in an implicit way. So underlying causes, yada yada. Okay, so you could say because of British military presence, or also the Boston Tea Party. You could kind of recode this with some kind of phrase about how the colonists, their trade was restricted. So because of trade restrictions, that could be a cause. So that way it encapsulates the Boston Tea Party, but also the Trade and Navigation Acts, the reason all the smuggling was going on with the sugar. So it can include so many other events if you recode this and not cite a specific event. Also, this part should not be in here because you're going into too many details about what happens after the fact. Because the colonists, they wanted to break away to prevent Great Britain from stripping them of their property and making them slaves. All right, so I don't really know kind of the details of this, or where are we getting this insinuation from. I'm not sure. But the prompt asks to assess the causes and not the hypotheticals. So this is kind of just all potential or hypothetically, maybe from a person's perspective. But it doesn't speak to the specific causes. So here, explain and assess the underlying causes of the American Revolution. That's just the prompt. This continues on with students in which in their thesis statement they were citing specific events. Here the student cites the Boston Tea Party. Colonists used various techniques to show their unsatisfaction through protesting, through representation, and the use of media. All right, very good. The resolution of the Stamp Act in Congress. Okay, so this thesis starts off very strong. The use of the media, excellent. And we don't need examples, newspapers, ads. You do that in the body of the essay. We do not need that in the thesis. Way too many details. You use the word media, perfect term for the many different types of media. No need to talk about even what the media is protesting or what the media is highlighting. And one other cause you may could have thrown in here, since you're talking about the Boston Tea Party, you could maybe talk about the economic restrictions or the economic restraints experienced by the colonists. That would probably be appropriate, and it would touch on the heart of that event, the Boston Tea Party. And then the stamp and the resolution of the Stamp Act in Congress. So, again, this is a specific event. You want to refrain from specific events because of their timestamp. So, another way to word this, as far as the cause of the revolution, can be because of colonial acts of protest or colonial means of protest. And you already kind of talked about protesting. So this part is just not really, or this could probably be through the organization of political bodies or the formation of political bodies. That way, it's not just the Stamp Act Congress, but the First and the Second Continental Congress. Those are also political bodies, political legislative bodies, actually. So that part will need to be taken out as well. Student number 20, the colonists strongly supported independence from Great Britain due mainly to the small amount of freedom and rights. This, along with many other causes, such as the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, and the Boston Massacre, led to the Revolution. All right, so we do not need these specific events. And so that's why we have categories. That's why you organize the documents thematically and you come up with a label heading for those groupings of documents so you can refrain from specific events. So the other causes can be things such as taxes, because that's what the Stamp Act was, and then restricted trade, because that's the heart of the Boston Tea Party, and also other means of physical violence. That can be a cause. Instead of saying the actual Boston Tea Party, you can just talk about any kind of violence that broke out. The Boston Massacre, the battles of Lexington and Concord, those were all means of physical violence. And then here, student number 21, many things in the colonies led to the revolution, such as taxation, great, writ of assistance, and protests like the Boston Tea Party. Okay, so writ of assistance is way too detailed, so maybe you could broaden this up a little bit to something such as unauthorized British surveillance or overbearing governmental um, supervision, because that's kind of what the writ of assistance does. It allows the government to, at their will, search and seize whatever they deem as necessary, because they're trying to, in some way, hack down on the smuggling of the sugar. So it seems like the trick here for finding a category label is to think about what is the primary purpose of the law or the act, and then label it as that broader purpose, not the specific event or specific vocabulary word. And protest. All right, that's great. So we don't need examples in the thesis, like the Tea Party. That is not necessary. So and just colonial protests. That will, you should put a period after that.